When Diana challenged Victoria Thornfield about denying mortgages to honest families, the bank director fought back viciously. "You live in palaces while preaching about housing." The explosive argument that erupted would reveal dark secrets and transform both their understanding of social justice. The autumn rain hammered against the glass facade of Thornfield and Associates Bank as Princess Diana stepped out of her modest Ford Escort on November 15th. She had deliberately chosen the unmarked car and casual clothing, hoping to avoid the usual fanfare that accompanied royal visits. Today wasn't about ceremony. Today was about confrontation. For weeks, Diana's private office had been receiving letters from families across London, all telling the same heartbreaking story. Honest, hard-working people denied mortgages despite steady jobs and clean credit histories. The common thread: Thornfield and Associates, one of London's most prestigious private banks. Marcus Webb, Diana's research assistant, had uncovered a pattern of discrimination so systematic it defied belief. Families with certain surnames, postcodes, or occupations were rejected regardless of qualifications. "Your Royal Highness," Marcus had told her that morning, "this is institutional prejudice dressed up as financial prudence." Diana had studied the thick file. Loan applications from teachers, nurses, and firefighters rejected, while wealthy socialites with questionable income sailed through approval. But Diana was tired of proper channels and diplomatic solutions. Sometimes the only way to create change was through direct action. The bank's reception area was all marble surfaces, dark wood paneling, and imposing portraits of stern-faced financiers. The message was clear. This was a place for serious money and serious people. The young receptionist looked up as Diana approached, her expression shifting from professional courtesy to barely concealed panic as recognition dawned. "I'd like to speak with Victoria Thornfield," Diana said simply. "I'm sorry, but Miss Thornfield is in meetings all afternoon. Perhaps I could schedule something for next week." Diana placed Marcus's research file on the reception desk with a soft but audible thud. "Tell Miss Thornfield that Princess Diana is here to discuss her bank's lending practices. Tell her I'll wait." Within minutes, a nervous-looking man in an expensive suit appeared. David Henley, the bank's security chief. "Your Royal Highness," Henley said with forced calm, "what an unexpected pleasure. I'm sure we can arrange a proper meeting with advance notice." "I'm not here for a proper meeting," Diana replied, her voice carrying the authority that came naturally after years of royal duties. "I'm here for answers now." The exchange had attracted attention from other bank employees and customers. Diana could see them trying to pretend they weren't listening while clearly hanging on every word. Good, she thought. Let them hear this. Victoria Thornfield emerged from the elevator like a general preparing for battle. At 48, she was immaculately dressed in a charcoal gray suit, silver hair pulled back severely, pale blue eyes holding years of cold, profit-focused decisions. "Princess Diana," Victoria said with false courtesy, "what brings you to our establishment?" Diana pulled out several loan rejection letters. "These families, all honest, hard-working people, all rejected despite meeting your criteria. Why?" Victoria barely glanced at them. "Banking is complex, Your Royal Highness, perhaps too complex for those unfamiliar with financial realities." Diana felt anger building but kept steady. Then explained denying a mortgage to a nurse with 15 years employment and perfect credit. "Our policies protect both bank and borrowers from unwise commitments," Victoria replied smoothly. Diana pulled out an internal memo. "Is this protection?" she read aloud. "Avoid applications from postal codes E1, E2, and E14. Exercise extreme caution with applicants in education, healthcare, and public service." Victoria's composure cracked slightly. "Internal assessments are proprietary. That's taken out of context." "Context?" Diana's voice rose sharply. "You're systematically denying homes to teachers, nurses, and firefighters while approving loans for people whose only qualification is inherited wealth." The lobby fell silent. Everyone stared. Victoria glanced around nervously. "Perhaps we should continue this in my office," Victoria suggested. "No," Diana said firmly. "We'll continue right here. These people deserve to hear how your bank operates." Victoria's professionalism finally slipped. "You have no right to march in here making accusations based on stolen documents. This is a private business, not one of your charity projects." "A private business profiting from public trust," Diana shot back. "These families trusted fair evaluation. Instead, you've played games with their futures based on prejudice." "Prejudice?" Victoria's voice turned icy. "How dare you lecture me? You live in palaces while preaching about housing. You've never worried about a mortgage payment. You have no idea what real financial responsibility looks like." The personal attack hit Diana hard, but she stepped closer. You're right, I've never worried about a mortgage, but I've sat with families who lost homes because banks like yours set them up to fail. I've held crying children forced to leave schools because parents couldn't get fair loans. Don't suggest privilege means I can't care about justice. Victoria laughed bitterly. Justice? This is economics, not a fairy tale. Banks exist for profits, not your romantic notions about everyone deserving homes. What about Amanda Foster? Diana asked, pulling out another document. Victoria's face went white. Amanda Foster was a junior loan officer who documented discriminatory practices before being mysteriously fired. Foster was terminated for violating confidentiality, Victoria said quickly. Foster was terminated for refusing illegal lending practices, Diana corrected. She documented everything: coded language, unwritten policies, deliberate targeting. She's prepared to testify. Victoria looked around, aware the confrontation had spiraled beyond control. This conversation is over. Security, escort Princess Diana out. David Henley stepped forward uncertainly, uncomfortable removing royalty. Your Royal Highness, perhaps. Diana held up her hand. I'm not finished. She opened the file to a photograph. George Patterson with his wife and 2 children outside their former home. George Patterson, 8 years military service, 12 years as mechanic, never missed a payment. Applied for a modest mortgage for a 2-bedroom house. Rejected without explanation. His family now lives in a hostel. Victoria glanced dismissively. One case doesn't prove a pattern. Diana spread more photos across the desk like cards. Sarah Chen, rejected despite master's degree in 10 years social work. Michael O'Brien, firefighter turned down for a loan smaller than your wine budget. Janet Williams, primary teacher whose crime was the wrong postcode. Each photo represented dreams deferred by institutional prejudice. Victoria stared, confidence wavering.
These people have something in common, Diana continued. They're not wealthy enough to matter. No connections, inherited money, or trust funds. Just honest jobs and dreams your bank decided weren't enough. Victoria straightened. Banking decisions are risk assessment, not sentiment. We have fiduciary responsibilities. Is that what you call discrimination? I have documentation showing you approved Lord Pemberton's son despite income only from gambling and family allowances. Victoria's jaw tightened. Pemberton's family banks with us for generations. Relationship factors influence decisions. Relationship factors, Diana said with disgust. Being born into the right family, having the right surname and connections. Merit matters less than bloodline. The lobby was packed. Word had spread about the confrontation, people gathering to witness this unprecedented scene. The real tragedy, Diana said, voice carrying across the room, isn't just these individual families. It's a system perpetuating inequality by denying opportunities to people who need them, while rubber stamping applications from those who have everything. Victoria looked around at witnesses, calculating damage. What exactly do you want? Diana closed the file. Personally review every rejected application from the past year. Apply criteria fairly regardless of social class or postcode. Establish formal appeals for unfairly rejected families. And if I refuse? Diana smiled coldly. I take this evidence to Financial Services Authority, Bank of England, and every major newspaper. I make sure everyone knows how Thornfield operates. I turn your practices into a national scandal following this institution for decades. Victoria stared, weighing options. The threat was real. Diana had platform, credibility, and evidence to destroy the bank's reputation permanently. You're threatening me, Victoria said quietly. I'm offering choice, Diana corrected. Continue discriminating while I expose it nationally, or change practices, treat applicants fairly, and serve your community. Silence was deafening. Everyone waited for Victoria's response to this royal ultimatum. Victoria looked at scattered photographs, faces of families whose dreams her bank had crushed. For the first time, she saw them as individuals, not statistics. This is blackmail, she said finally. This is accountability, Diana replied, something your industry has avoided too long. Victoria walked to the window, reflection ghost-like in rain-streaked glass. When she turned back, some hardness had gone from her expression. You believe this will make a difference? Every family deserves fair chances, Diana answered. A bank's responsibility goes beyond profit margins to basic human dignity. Do you know the difference between good business and institutional prejudice? Victoria picked up the Patterson family photo, studying it. George Patterson, she said slowly. Military service, steady employment, clean credit. On paper, exactly the borrower banks should want. But wrong postcode, Diana said. Works with hands, not suits. No family money or social connections, so your bank decided he was unworthy. Victoria looked directly at Diana. What you're asking, it's not just changing policies, it's changing this institution's entire culture. Then change it, Diana said simply. Victoria laughed bitterly, with self-recognition rather than dismissal. Do you know what other directors will say? Our traditional clientele? We've built reputation on exclusivity. You've built on elitism, Diana corrected. There's a difference. Exclusivity based on merit and financial responsibility is legitimate. Based on social class and inherited privilege is just prejudice with better marketing. For the first time since the confrontation began, Victoria seemed to be genuinely considering Diana's words rather than simply defending her position. The change was subtle but unmistakable. If I agreed to do this, Victoria said slowly, it couldn't be just a public relations gesture. It would have to be real, structural change, new policies, staff training, oversight mechanisms. It would be expensive and complicated. Real change usually is, Diana agreed, but the alternative is continuing to profit from systematic discrimination while families suffer the consequences. Victoria picked up the internal memo that Diana had quoted earlier, reading it as if seeing it for the first time. Jesus, she whispered, we actually put this in writing. Your bank didn't just practice discrimination, Diana said. You institutionalized it. You created official policies designed to exclude certain groups while maintaining plausible deniability. Victoria crumpled the memo in her fist. This is indefensible. The admission seemed to surprise Victoria herself. For the first time in the conversation, her corporate mask had completely slipped, revealing something more human underneath. Miss Thornfield, Diana said, her voice gentler now, I didn't come here to destroy your bank or end your career. I came here because I believe people should be judged by their character and qualifications, not their social class or background. You have the power to make that happen. Victoria looked around the lobby, noting the crowd of witnesses who had gathered to watch this unprecedented confrontation. This conversation, it's going to be all over London by evening. Probably, Diana agreed. The question is what story they'll tell. Will it be about a bank director who was confronted with evidence of discrimination and chose to defend it? Or will it be about a business leader who had the courage to acknowledge mistakes and commit to real change? Victoria was quiet, wrestling with a decision affecting her career and institution. Finally, she looked up. If I completely overhaul our lending practices, I need your word this evidence won't be made public during implementation. You have it, Diana said immediately. But I need your word changes will be real, not cosmetic. Regular demographic reports on approvals, genuinely independent appeals process, and Amanda Foster reinstated with formal apology. Victoria winced but nodded. Foster knows more about our discriminatory practices than anyone. If we're serious about change, we need people like her. Diana extended her hand. Partners in fixing this? Victoria shook it firmly. Partners. The crowd began dispersing, sensing resolution. But Diana wasn't finished. One more thing. Community outreach program. Your loan officers meeting directly with underserved community borrowers. Just conversations about needs and how banking can serve better. Victoria raised an eyebrow. Community organizing. I want your officers understanding they're not just processing applications, Diana clarified. They're affecting real families, dreams, futures. Human connection might help them remember. Over following months, Victoria kept her word. Lending practices completely overhauled, emphasizing financial qualifications over social status. Amanda Foster was reinstated and promoted to head new Fair Lending Division. The outreach program became a model other banks emulated. Most significantly, Victoria herself changed. The confrontation forced her to examine unquestioned assumptions, seeing her practices through affected people's eyes.
You know what's strangest? Victoria told Diana 6 months later, our portfolio improved when we started judging fairly. Teachers, nurses, and firefighters are reliable borrowers. Diana smiled. People dedicating lives to serving others turn out responsible with money. I spent years believing exclusivity meant quality, Victoria reflected. I confused social prejudice with financial prudence. It took a royal confrontation in my lobby to see the difference. Thornfield's changes became a case study in how financial institutions could serve communities while maintaining profitability. Other banks adopted similar practices because the model proved successful. Diana often thought about that rainy November day when she'd walked in looking for a fight. The confrontation had been heated, personal, and public, but also necessary. Sometimes the most important conversations began with conflict.
Real change required uncomfortable confrontations with uncomfortable truths. People most committed to unfair systems were often most capable of changing them. They just needed someone to hold up a mirror. The explosive argument that seemed destructive actually created something constructive: a better bank, fairer practices, and two women who learned to see past assumptions about each other. Victoria confronted the human cost of her decisions, while Diana learned even resistant opponents could become allies with the right combination of evidence, pressure, and genuine commitment to change. Years later, when people asked Victoria about the day Princess Diana confronted her in the bank lobby, she would always say, "It was the most uncomfortable conversation of my professional life, and also the most important one." Sometimes you need someone to challenge everything you think you know about yourself and your work. Diana did that for me, and I'm grateful for it, even though I hated every minute of it at the time. The story became legend in London's financial district, not as cautionary tale about royal interference, but proof that sometimes the most powerful force for change comes from someone brave enough to walk into a room full of powerful people and tell them exactly what they don't want to hear. Diana had proven that day that real leadership isn't about having a title or position. It's about having the courage to stand up for what's right, even when it's uncomfortable, unpopular, or politically risky. The families whose photos Diana had spread across that marble desk never forgot what she'd done. George Patterson got his mortgage and bought his modest house. Sarah Chen was approved for a loan helping her purchase a flat near work. Michael O'Brien and Janet Williams found fair treatment at banks, learning from Thornfield's example. More importantly, they learned sometimes justice requires someone willing to fight for it, especially when the fight seems impossible to win, about having the courage to stand up for what's right, even when it's uncomfortable, unpopular, or politically risky. The families whose photos Diana had spread across that marble reception desk never forgot what she had done for them. George Patterson eventually got his mortgage and bought his modest terraced house. Sarah Chen was approved for a loan that helped her purchase a small flat near the school where she worked. Michael O'Brien and Janet Williams both found fair treatment at banks that had learned from Thornfield's example. But more importantly, they had all learned that sometimes justice requires someone willing to fight for it, especially when the fight seems impossible to win.